them in. So in this first wing here, non-violent offenders, thieves. We would keep them in here. Now, you'll notice here you have 4 rooms. 3 of them have a wooden door. We actually took the wooden door off here so you could take a peek inside that small room. Again, wooden door, not so bad. Next up, when we go through those double doors there, that metal door there are 2 double doors. They're both made out of metal, so a little bit worse. By the time we get to the 3rd floor up there, the walls are sheathed in metal. We would put them in cages, and then the worst of the worst, we would shackle them up before we put them in the cages. Now the reason the walls were sheathed in metal is the prisoners had a nasty habit of scraping the mortar out from around the bricks, pushing the bricks out, and escaping. So the most vicious and violent we put on the top floor, sheathed the walls in metal, put them in cages, and the worst of the worst, we shackled them down in the cages. So again, the amount of metal depended on how bad the prisoner was. Now, at the height of the Civil War, this jail was overcrowded, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But just imagine, as you walk down through here, take a peek in that room and imagine between 30 to 50 people. It would not be unusual for this hallway here, this one little wing, to have over 200 prisoners in this one little section.
Wow.
Wow.
So, again, take a peek and
That's
go
a
ahead
lot.
to the next location.
You got light for me? Cool. That's cool.
Every time I put them on, they fog up again.
Okay. Wow. This is cool. Check that out. Okay. This is fascinating.
We're ahead down here.
Yep. This is absolutely fascinating.
Glad you're enjoying it.
Okay.
All right, folks. Now, welcome to the Charleston City Jail. I have never seen a jail that was ever built, especially one in South Carolina, that wasn't already overcrowded before they opened the doors. And this jail is no exception to the rule. This jail was originally built to house 140 prisoners maximum. But at the height of the Civil War, this jail kept 500 on the inside with an additional 600 Union prisoners or more out back. So you're talking about a facility designed for a maximum of 140, taking care of well over 1,000. That's insanity. Our friend Lieutenant Abbott, he's the one who said this was the nastiest, dirtiest, filthiest, lousiest place he'd ever been. He also wrote in his journal that on the first day after he was captured, he was walking through the backyard out there and he could hear the insects crunching underneath his boots with every step that he took. He said the yard was infested. He said the next morning when he woke up, he pulled 50 lice off of his shirt alone. The yard was infested and so was the inside of this jail. Inside the jail, the floors were covered with hay. That hay was your bedding. Inside that hay was all the nasty little creepy crawlers you can imagine. Fleas, flies, lice, roaches, maggots, spiders, ants, and occasional snake. Every once in a while was all down in that hay that you slept on. We had rodents in this building. We'll talk about the flying kind first. We had bats nesting in here, and they still do. In the hot summer months, they'll come out, they'll fly over our heads at dusk, and they'll feed above our heads. Makes for an eerie introduction to a ghost tour. But sometimes they'll join us on a tour. A few months back, I was doing a ghost tour in the jail, and a bat flew in the room that we were in. It's amazing how fast one single bat can evacuate a room. You ever need a room cleared out, drop a bat in it, watch it go. He can work wonders, let me tell you. Now, a few years back, we had some carpenters doing some preservation work in this building. Those carpenters they were working on the roof, and they started finding bone fragments up at the very top of this building, up in the ceiling and the rafters. Now, these weren't human bones, these were animal bones, part of the food product served to the prisoners. But it does not explain how in the world they got up there in the ceiling. How did they get there? Well, whenever the lights went out, the rats came down. They grabbed those bones out of the pots and pans and plates, dragged them up through the walls into the roof. They would gnaw them clean and leave them up there 100+ years so we could find them later. Now, there's still descendants of those rodents in this building. Sometimes on the late tours, we'll get down to the first floor, and there's some ocean-activated sensor lights down there. And sometimes those lights will activate and turn on. And sometimes people will see something go scurrying across the floor down there. And they'll turn to me and they'll say, "Oh, Bruce, we just saw a kitten." No, you didn't. What you saw wasn't a kitten. It's the size of a kitten, but it's not a kitten. It's a jailhouse rat. Now, we call them jailhouse kittens because of that. So don't pick them up and kiss them or squeeze them. They don't like that. They live here. Now, there's never any electricity in this building when it was a jail, but you can handle that with candles and kerosene lamps and lanterns. The real problem was no running water. Why was that an issue? No sewage. So imagine, if you will, 500 people inside this building using buckets as a restroom. Those buckets did not get dumped frequently. Sometimes they got dumped accidentally right to the hay, which was your bed. That didn't get changed out too often either. They said in the hot summer months like July and August, you could smell this jail 4 to 6 blocks away. So as you can imagine, the diseases, with sanitary conditions that bad, the disease was constant through here. Now, we had punishments here at the jail, and from the very beginning, we borrowed punishments from the British. Punishments we had in Charleston, we had stocks and pillories, so putting devices in a public place that would lock you into. People come by and throw their garbage at you. We had those. We had whippings and lashes. We had brandings. They take a hot branding iron and brand your hand or your face with the first letter of the crime that you committed. Letters like T for theft or M for manslaughter, and so on and so forth. We had cropping here in Charleston. Cropping was a nasty one in Charleston, just adored. Cropping, they take a pair of scissors and they cut a wedge out of your ear, or cut your earlobe off, or they cut the end of your nose off so people would recognize you as a criminal in the streets. You ever heard the phrase, "cut your nose off to spite your face," and wonder where it came from?
Yeah.
That was actually a judge's ruling. He would rule the punisher to cut your nose off to spite your face so people would recognize you as a crook in the streets. And then we had hangings here in the jail. Hangings from 1802 to 1911. Hangings were entertainment. They were a spectator sport. People came from all around to watch other people die in this backyard. People would line the fences. People in this neighborhood would actually rent out the rooftops and balconies, and they would charge admission to watch other people die, and people would pay it. Again, entertainment. So that gives you an idea of the conditions of this jail and what it was like to be in here. Now, and to be around it too. Now, with that said, when I head across the hallway, we're going to start talking about some of the inhabitants of this jail. We'll pass, and I'm going to stick around. So, let's head across over here. And that was Lavinia Fisher. Now, John and Lavinia Fisher, there are as many versions of that legend as there are tour guides in Charleston, so I'm going to tell you the tale that I grew up with. John and Lavinia Fisher ran an inn called the 6 Mile Inn right on the outskirts of Charleston. The inns were places where people coming through on the wagon train to Charleston, they could stop one of the horses, get a bite to eat, or find a place to rest. Now, John and Lavinia Fisher had a good routine set up at the 6 Mile Inn. Somebody stopped and water the horses. John Fisher would come out and say, "I'll take care of those horses for you. I'll go feed and water them for you and board them in the barn. Why don't you go on in the house and see my wife Lavinia? She's got dinner on the table and I'll join you when I'm done." Well, he'd take the wagon around to the barn and steal the horses and he'd rob the wagon. And after dinner was done, or after he was done, he'd go join everybody for dinner, and then after dinner was done, Lavinia Fisher would escort the driver upstairs and show him to his room. Once she got him upstairs to the room, she'd offer him a hot cup of tea. She'd say, "Oh, by the way, please, take this hot cup of tea. It's a special recipe. I brew it myself. It will help you sleep, because we know you've got a long, hard day in Charleston ahead of you tomorrow. We want you to get your rest." Well, it would indeed help you sleep, but it would help you sleep permanently because it was laced with oleander. Oleander is one of Charleston's most poisonous plants. Every bit of the plant is poisonous, from the roots to the petals to the flowers. It is extremely beautiful and extremely deadly, just like Lavinia was. But if it didn't work fast enough, John Fisher was a nice guy. If he came in the room, found you thrashing around on the bed, still convulsing from the poisoning, well, he'd reach down and help you out. He'd reach down and grab you by the ankle, snatch you off onto the floor, and he'd stab you half a dozen times. Then you roll the bed out of the way, roll you onto the trap door underneath it, but you fall down into the basement. You sprinkle a little lye on top of you to keep you from stinking as you decomposed over the next few days. You clean up the bloody mess, roll the bed back in position, and wait on the next happy customer to come through. Pretty good routine. He made a lot of money that way, according to the legend. That is until one night a man by the name of John Peoples shows up. John Peoples was headed from Savannah, Georgia to Charleston, South Carolina with a wagon load of goods and his whole dog. They traveled everywhere together. They get to the 6 mile inn and the routine starts all over again. John Fisher comes out and he says he'll take care of the wagon and the horses. He sends the man and the dog into Lavinia. Well, Lavinia feeds the man and the dog and she escorts him upstairs and she offers him that hot cup of tea we just talked about. Well, he takes it from her, thanks her for it. He goes into the room and as he's unpacking, he sits that hot cup of tea on a little side table. Well, fortunately for him, but not for the old dog is thirsty and helps himself to the tea. Next thing he knows, his dog's foaming at the mouth, convulsing, and drops over dead. He's trying to figure out what happened to his old dog when he hears John Fisher outside the door talking to Lavinia about what he's getting ready to do to Mr. Peoples if Mr. Peoples is still alive. Well, Mr. Peoples decides it's really not a good day to be stabbed to death. That would be highly inconvenient and probably ruin his business trip. He also decides it's a really good day to get the hell out of that house. So he opens up the window, he climbs out onto the roof over the porch, starts sliding down it and making his escape. And that's when John Fisher breaks in. Fisher sees what's happening. He grabs Mr. Peoples' rifle off the bed and starts loading it. As soon as Mr. Peoples hits the ground, he fires a shot at the man, but he misses him. Obviously, this causes Mr. Peoples to go into high gear. He goes running across the yard, he jumps up on Fisher's horse, rides off through the woods, and heads to Charleston. Once he gets to Charleston, he finds the sheriff. The sheriff comes back with a group of men. They find the Fishers, the bodies, the property. They burn the house to the ground. They arrest the Fishers, and they bring them right back here to where we're standing. They keep them in this jail for a year. During that time, they were taken to trial. They were found guilty, and they're sentenced to be hanged. So on February 18th of 1820, they take them from this jail over Lion Street to hang them. Why in the world would we take them away from the jail to hang them when we got gallows right there in the backyard? Well, remember I said it was entertainment, it was a spectator sport. No one had ever seen a husband and wife hang together, so this is like the Super Bowl hangings right here in Charleston. Everybody shows up. They had to change the venue to accommodate the crowd. They had between 1,200 to 1,500 people wanting to see this thing. First person up on the gallows is John Fisher. They put him up there, put him on the trap door, put a noose around his neck, and the chaplains come out. They say, John Fisher, would you like to ask God's forgiveness of your sins before you head to eternity on this day? John Fisher takes him up on the offer. Hangman drops the lever, the trap door opens, and off to eternity he goes, riding on into the rope. They cut his body down, set everything back up, and they bring Lavinia Fisher up there. They put Lavinia Fisher up on the trap door. They put a noose around her neck. Now, interesting thing about Lavinia Fisher is she's wearing a white wedding dress. Why in the world would this woman wear a white wedding dress for her own hanging? Well, she feels as if the citizens of Charleston will not allow a married woman to be hanged. They riot, they protest, and they rescue her. Slightly delusional on her part, that did not happen, but hey, I guess it was worth a shot. Also, when she requested to be hanged in her wedding dress, the Charleston authorities got suspicious and wondered why she wanted to do such a thing. Didn't take them long to figure out her game plan. Also didn't take them very long to figure out a solution to it. How did they solve that problem? Man, that was relatively simple. All they did, they hanged John Fisher first. She was no longer a married woman. She's an instant widow. So checkmate Lavinia. Now she's standing up there on that trap door, long white dress on, long dark hair blowing in the breeze, smile upon her face and a noose around her neck. Well, she's not giving up yet. She's waiting on the sheriff to bring a pardon from the governor. The sheriff comes up there and he says, Lavinia Fisher, there is no pardon from the governor. You will die today and you will die at the end of the rope around your neck. That is not what she wanted to hear. She throws a fit. She throws a temper tantrum. Well, those same chaplains come up and they say, Lavinia Fisher, would you like to ask God's forgiveness of your sins before you head to eternity on this day? Her response, she spits in their faces. She tells them, I'll have none of that. She says, if you've got a message you want to send to the devil, give it to me. I'll be seeing it shortly. With that, she jumps off the platform, hangs herself, snaps her own neck, and deprives anybody the honor or privilege of doing it for her. Now, that's her legend. Also, according to her legend, man would not pardon her of her crimes. God would not forgive her of her sins, and the devil, he didn't want to hear one damn word she had to say, so he locked the gates of hell and wouldn't let her in. Now she's all dressed up in that pretty white wedding dress with nowhere to go, so what does she do? She comes right back here, and this is where she haunts. She's often seen in here in that long white dress with her long dark hair and her beautiful features. She's also attributed to a signature scratch mark. People will end up with 3 parallel scratches down their legs, down their arms, or down their neck and back. That is believed to be Lavinia's way of thanking you folks a living for coming in here and continuing to torment her. She serves out the rest of her sentence for eternity in this godforsaken jail. Now that's her tale. Now with her tale told, let's step to the 3rd floor and we'll talk about somebody a whole lot worse than she was. So let's head up this way.
That says 300.
Alright folks, welcome to Murderer's Row. Now again, these walls are sheets of metal like we talked about. These were the most vicious and violent. Folks housed up here were folks like Sergeant Charles Long. Sergeant Charles Long served at Fort Moultrie, but for whatever reason, one night he went home. He stopped by the woodpile, picked up the axe, went inside, and butchered his entire family as they slept, killing his wife and children. He was kept here. Now, we have Willie Marcus. Willie Marcus, wonderful product of humanity. Willie Marcus thought his wife was cheating on him. So, Willie took an ice pick and he stabbed her 42 times. He dumped her body out on Sullivan's Island. Well, of course, this caused him to be put into the newspaper, which caused his other wife to come to Charleston to find out why he killed a woman for cheating on him while he's cheating on her with that other woman. We hanged him in the backyard, but he still haunts here. But the absolute worst of the worst, the most violent ever held in here that we're aware of, is Oscar Johnson. Oscar Johnson was a huge, hulking brute of a man, according to the newspaper, who had a very violent temper. If things didn't go his way, bad things happened. Well, he starts out in Georgia. He goes to visit his family one night, and no one's home except his sister-in-law, Lucinda. Lucinda is a very small woman, very petite. Now, she is terrified of Oscar Johnson. She also knows not to make him angry because bad things happen. Well, she gets a knock on the door. She opens up the door, and there, standing on the front doorstep, is her worst nightmare. Oscar Johnson is there, and she is alone. And he invites her to go for a moonlight stroll with him. Well, she does not want to go, but she knows not to make him angry either. So now she's got a serious problem. So she thinks for a few minutes, and she decides, you know what? There's a large crowd out on the streets. The streets are very, very crowded. Tons of people out there. He's not going to do anything stupid or drastic. There's that many people out there. So she decides to go for the walk, just to appease him, get it done with, and that's it. She goes for the stroll, and he makes a pass at her. She does not return his advances. Long story short, he flies into a rage. He attacks her, cuts her throat, does not stop until it gets clean through to the other side, completely decapitates her. He picks up her head in one hand, he grabs her body by the ankle, and the other one walks through the crowd to the river and throws both of them in. Now, because of the brutality of the crime, law enforcement put him in an insane asylum. There are lots of things wrong with Oscar Johnson, but insanity is not one of them. They put him in this insane asylum, and he's in there, and he finds a new friend, and he and his friend start plotting to escape. There's only one problem, though. That new friend of his is legitimately insane, and insane people don't make good escape plans. So all this guy's doing is just aggravating the fool out of Oscar Johnson. Oscar Johnson decides out of necessity to talk to one of the guards. And he tries to get the guard involved, but the guard rats him out. So now Oscar knows he's going to go to trial. And if he's found guilty, he's going to die. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So Oscar's got to get out of there. He starts stealing blankets, and he starts shredding those blankets, tying them together, knotting them together, and then he makes a makeshift rope. And one night, one nice, quiet, moonlit night, he throws that rope out of the 3rd floor window, and he starts climbing down the side of the building. He gets between the 2nd and 3rd floor when out of the window pops, guess who? his best friend. And what is his best friend doing that nice, quiet, moonlit night? Oh, he starts screaming as loud as he can. Oscar, Oscar, please take me with you while you're escaping. Don't leave me in here. Of course, every light in the building turns on, and then the alarm sounds. So Oscar hurries to the ground. Once he gets to the ground, well, he's had enough. And his friend is still screaming. His friend is screaming even louder over the alarm. Oscar, Oscar, please take me with you. Don't leave me here. Tell me what I need to do. I don't know what to do. Help me. Don't leave me in this place. So Oscar looks up at him and yells, jump, I'll catch you. The man jumps. Oscar didn't catch him. Guy hits the ground. Boom, shatters his leg. He's screaming, creates a diversion, and Oscar disappears into the woods. Well, the man's leg is damaged so badly, eventually infection sets in, then gangrene. They have to do surgery and amputate. During the surgery, the surgeon slices his own hand, gets blood poisoning, and eventually he dies. So if you're keeping a scorecard, right now you got a brutally murdered woman missing a head, best friend missing a leg, dead surgeon, and then Oscar's still gone. On the outskirts of Charleston, 30 miles away, is a little town called Lincolnville, South Carolina, right next to Summerville. And during that time, Lincolnville had a little grocery store run by a couple called the Twightmans. The Twightmans, well, they don't show up to work one morning, so neighbors go down to their house and they discover what the newspaper would later describe as the most horrific and bloodiest crime scene in the history of Charleston. Someone has taken an axe, broken into the house, and butchered the Twightmans so badly they're unrecognizable. You can't tell him from her or whose parts belong to which person. The newspaper nicknames this killer the Lincolnville Butcher, so now you have a nicknamed serial killer on the run. Well, eventually, law enforcement tracks him down to a farmhouse a mile away, and that farmhouse has a new hired hand, and that new hired hand's name, you guessed it, Oscar Johnson. They charge him with a double murder. They bring him right back here to the jail, and they put him in here. They take him to trial. It takes the jury 5 minutes to find him guilty and sentence him to hang. On the date of his execution, they take him out back, they put him on the gallows. They put a noose around his neck, a black hood over his head, say a few words. Hangman drops the lever, the trap door opens, and down he goes. And he spirals about 3 or 4 times, kicking, and the rope pops and he falls to the ground. Then, Oscar Johnson stands up. That's not what the officials were expecting. One of the deputies runs over there, throws another rope around his neck, throws it up over the arms of the gallows, and all the officials rush him. They physically lift him up and hoist him up into the air and hold him in place until one of the guards can run up and tie off that slack in the rope. And then they drop him. The officials literally hanged the man by hand out back. They wanted to make sure he never got out of here, and they did a good job of that, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, with all this activity and him kicking around now, the crowd is whipped into a frenzy. The crowd that's gathered around is chanting, 2 deaths, 2 hangings, fair justice. 2 deaths, 2 hangings, fair justice. What did they mean? The 2 deaths were obviously the Twightmans. The 2 hangings, they thought that was fair and just. They were happy about it. When he stops moving and twitching, the authorities, they don't even bother to take the hood off his head or the ropes off his neck. They just cut him down. They drop him into a little pine coffin box they had built for him. They hammer a lid on it, and they slide him downstairs into the morgue area on the 1st floor. They did this because they hanged him at 11 o'clock in the morning. It is too hot to bury him. They're going to wait till the cool of the evening and take him down to the potter's field and bury him then. Good idea, but that was a problem in this case. You see, all day long, anytime anybody walked by the morgue area, they would hear banging coming from inside the box. Eventually, they started hearing a voice coming out of it saying, "Let me out." Well, they figured at first they thought it was laughable because they thought to themselves, you know what? By the time the wagon gets here tonight, that's a self-correcting problem. He will lose all the air in there and suffocate, so that's not a big deal. Well, the problem is, it didn't stop. All day long, anytime they walked by it, they would hear the banging and the pleading. Sometimes when they walked by that doorway, they'd see out of the corner of their eye a huge hulking figure, either sitting on that box or standing next to it. That figure would have a black hood on his head and ropes hanging from his neck. They'd double back, the room would be empty except for the box. Head down the hallway and the banging and pleading would start. All day long. The only time it ever stopped was when somebody stepped into that morgue area. As soon as they crossed the threshold, it would stop. Some of the braver guards would walk across the room, bend down, put their hands on that box, and they were feeling for vibrations. No vibrations, nothing's moving in the box. One guard even turned around, sat down on the box, and had a conversation with the other guard. Nothing. Not a single thing moving, not a single sound. As soon as those two guards got up, walked across the threshold, stepped back out in the hallway, the banging and the pleading started again. All day long. By the time that wagon got there that night, the guards had had enough. They just needed to know, was Oscar Johnson still alive in the box? So, wagon gets there, there's two guards there. One guard's got a pry bar, one guard's got a hammer. One with a pry bar starts slowly prying that lid off the box. The one with the hammer, he's getting ready to play whack-a-mole in case Oscar sticks his head out. He's going to make sure he's good and dead. Problem is, he didn't have to do it. Oscar had been dead since 11 o'clock that morning when they hanged him. They hammered the lid back on the box. They picked the box up, threw it on the back of the wagon, and sent his body away, but Oscar Johnson never left here. They did such a good job of wanting to keep him here, he's still here. He's often seen down on that first floor, especially in the morgue area, wearing that black hood on his head, those ropes dangling from his neck, and still begging for somebody to let him out. So, with that said, let's head down to the morgue area and see if somebody wants to let Oscar out tonight. But let's head this way.
Which way, left or right? Careful going down. That's why I'm not rushing you. Also good to make video.
Yeah, we're messing with you people. We're coming.
On the last one. We were just making sure that it was safety. To the left, to the morgue. Oh gosh, nice dark room.
Alright, folks. Now, welcome to the morgue area. I don't know if this place is cooler because it was a morgue or a morgue because it's cooler, but it's definitely a temperature change in here. Now, one of the persons that haunts in this jail, especially on the third floor, is Alonzo Smalls. Alonzo Smalls, 1911. He's looking for something to do. He goes out and he steals a trolley car and goes for a joyride up and down the trolley tracks in Charleston. A man by the name of Captain Thomas Sims is getting off another trolley car just as Alonzo's rounds the corner. Alonzo hits him, runs over him, and kills him. The authorities, they find Alonzo Smalls, they charge him with murder. They bring him right back here to this jail. They turn him over to Captain William Bennett, the head of the jail. Captain Bennett takes one look at Alonzo Smalls and shakes his head. He cannot bring himself to put him upstairs in Murderer's Row in those cages with those monsters up there. He knows Alonzo won't last 5 minutes in this place up there with those people. Why is that? That's because Alonzo Smalls, charged with murder and housed in this jail, is just 10 years old. He is a 10-year-old boy, a child. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to him, but he's still here. He's often seen here and heard here. Now, you folks probably noticed this creepy wheelchair. If you didn't notice it, hey, this is a creepy wheelchair. This creepy wheelchair has been in this jail for quite some time. It used to be up on the 3rd floor. Now, any tour guide that's been here any length of time has a creepy wheelchair story. We all have one. But the worst one I ever heard belongs to my friend Andrew. Andrew's a great guy. He's a great tour guide. He's in here a few years back, early one morning, and he's doing a jail history tour. Now, jail history tours are a lot different than what we're doing right now. First of all, jail history tours are for folks that aren't brave like all you folks. Those folks want to come out real early in the morning. No chance of the sun going down, and all they want to hear about is jail history. They don't care about ghosts. But guess what? Ghosts don't care about them either. Ghosts do what ghosts do whenever ghosts want to do it, and they don't care if it's your happy little history tour early in the morning. So those folks get up to the 3rd floor that morning just in time to see this wheelchair. It's doing a little donut, doing a little spin on its own. There's a little hushed conversation and a little nervous laughter among the guests, but Andrew flat out ignores it. Walks his group right past it into another room, out of sight, out of mind, and everybody forgets about it, including Andrew. That is until 3 nights later. 3 nights later, Andrew's in here at night and he's giving a ghost tour. And he's up on the 3rd floor with his guests. And among his guests is a mom and her little daughter. Her little girl, she's just singing and dancing and laughing and giggling and doing cheers and splits and cartwheels and all kinds of crazy junk in here, acting like this nasty place is Carolyn's. Kids that act like that in places like this, they creep me out. That's pretty bad. Eventually, she goes out in the darkened hallway. She sits down on the ground next to this wheelchair, and she's talking and laughing and giggling and singing and having the time of her life. Andrew just flat out ignores her, and he keeps telling his tales. When he finishes, he starts walking towards the door, and little Miss Creepiness jumps up from the darkness and runs in there and stops him. She goes, Mister, I need to tell you something that's real important, I promise. He goes, yes, ma'am, what's that? She says, the little boy that I was talking to and playing with out there in the hallway says he's sorry he scared you folks the other morning when he was playing in the wheelchair. He wanted me to come in and tell you he was sorry. Well, Andrew said he felt the color drain out of his face, felt his knees start to buckle, and all I could hear was his pulse in his own head. He thought he was going to faint. Actually, he went in the room, leaned up against the wall for a few minutes and collected his composure. Took a couple of seconds to stick all of his fecal matter back into one sock. That's a clean way of saying it. Then he goes in there and he has a conversation with everybody, and he has to explain to them what just happened. I'm sure that went over marvelously. Now, Bulldog Tours, a company that I work for, we have 70 guides associated with us, and we do all sorts of tours. We do food tours, history tours, and lots of ghost tours. Now, out of those 70 guides, 70 of those guys, they want to do this tour. Why wouldn't they want to do the haunted jail tour? Well, I'm getting ready to tell you and show you in just a second. But if you get picked to do this tour, well, if you're trained to do this tour and you are the last tour guide doing the last tour, guess who shuts the place down by themselves? Oh yeah, that's you and your flashlight. You start at the 3rd floor. You go room to room, cell to cell, floor to floor, shutting this place down. When you get to the bottom, you set the alarm and you go home. Does not matter if it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, it's on you. So from the 70 guides that we have that want to do this tour, there's 6 of us that do this tour. 6 of us. Now, something's going to happen to you as a guide. It's going to happen to you usually 1 or 2 times in this jail. Either when you're opening or closing by yourself. Now, opening's not so bad. You see, opening, if you're smart and you're quick, you can get this place opened up in 5 minutes, be out there with a group and back in here with a group. You don't have to stay in here for 5 minutes if you're quick. Closing is a different story. You're in here for a little bit of time, and that's usually when things happen. Now, not all the time, but a good bit. Just so happens that August 10th of 2020, I'm closing down this building. I finished the 3rd floor. I finished the 2nd floor. I'm getting ready to head down to the 1st floor when I hear a voice coming from the 3rd floor. That's not a good thing. So I turn on my phone and I start recording. Not a lot to see, but there's a few things to hear, and I'll point them out as we go. First thing I'm going to point out that you're going to hear right off the bat, you're going to hear some shuffling, and then you're going to hear some deep breathing, some heavy, eerie, creepy breathing right off the bat. That's me. You see, if you're in a building and you hear a voice talking to you and you know you're by yourself, you can't help it. That crap's involuntary. I don't care if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or Chuck Norris. It's going to happen to you. And I can't help it. So, yeah, that creepy breathing right off the bat's me. The rest of it, I'll point it out as we go. Again, not a lot to see, but there are a few things to hear. All right, let me find it again. Got the volume up a little bit. There's the heavy breathing in the shuffling. That was a door slamming on the 3rd floor. So now you'll hear me shuffle up towards the stairs so there's no walls blocking me. I can hear straight up the stairs. That's another door.
Okay.
That gets your attention.
Yeah.
But that's not the worst of it. What happens next is usually what causes our guides to say, nope, we're done with 21 Magazine Street. We'll go do a tour anywhere else with this company, but we're not setting foot back in the jail. Now this first part, I'm going to play the first section once, and then I'll play the whole thing through so you can hear what's happening. So let's just start right about here. catch that? He said hello. Now the second part, we don't know exactly what he's saying. The last word sounds like out, so we think he's saying something about being let out. But now, don't know exactly what he said. Now, if I'm honest with you, and I kept filming, what you would see is me skip the whole first floor. I don't bother shutting anything else down. I just go set the alarm, shut the door, go out in the parking lot, get my pickup truck, drive the 31 miles home, and find the comfort of Jack Daniels in my liquor cabinet. True story. Now, we believe that's Alonzo. That came from the third floor. That's where Alonzo's often seen and heard. It is a young male's voice. Now, Alonzo haunts the third floor, but he is not the only ghost child in here. We're kind of sandwiched. You see, Alonzo haunts the third floor, but the first floor here, we have another child ghost that haunts here. This ghost, we don't know exactly what her name is, but we call her Bridget. We believe Bridget is a debtor's child. When this jail first opened up, we had a debtor's prison down here on the first floor. And if you were a man, you couldn't pay your debt, and you had nobody to take care of your family, guess who came to jail with you to work it off? I'm sure that made the little wife happy, bringing her and all the kids with you to jail to work off your debt. Now, we believe Bridget is one of the debtor's children. One night, and Bridget haunts the first floor here, all the way through here, all the way out this back door. She's seen sometimes out there out back, and in the parking lot. Now, one night we have a family out back. Dad comes around to the greeter, and he tells the greeter, you know, there's a little girl back there, but there's nobody with her. She's dressed in rags, she's barefooted, and she's filthy. Every time we go over to try to talk to her, she runs over to the far corner over there in the back where the tall grass is and hides among the trees. And we can't get close to her, and we have no idea, there's nobody out here with her. Well, the greeter says, I don't remember anybody out there like that, or had a kid like that. But he goes back around with the dad, and he gets back there with the whole family. They can't find the little girl. That little girl, we believe it's Bridget. That's what we nicknamed her. Bridget haunts this first floor. Now, the interesting thing is, before Dad went around there to talk to the greeter, he tried to get Bridget to pose for a picture. And Bridget took off and started going towards the back there to the corner, like he said. But he did get a picture of the back of Bridget. So, that's Bridget, 5-year-old Bridget, about that age, with a little braid down her back. Bridget haunts the first floor. Now, if you think it's bad being out there on the third floor and you hear a voice say hello, Alonzo does not, look out this here. Alonzo does not have anything on Bridget. Bridget's got a nice little thing that she likes to do to us. Alonzo says hello on occasion. Bridget, she likes to wait till the tour guide walks all the way down this hallway, locks this door, and starts heading back to set the alarm. And that's when Bridget decides she wants to run down this hallway and giggle. Problem is, there's nobody there. You just hear the footsteps and the giggling. That makes for an interesting night. I've been here 11 years. I've heard it twice. Second time was last week. Made a mistake. I didn't have my phone on that night. Every time I shut this place down from now on, I've got the phone camera going. But things happen. So Bridget haunts this first floor. Now, you guys are the last tour. So what I like to do with the last tour, since I've got a few seconds, and y'all probably got a few seconds since it's raining, I like to show you pictures that you folks take. See, most of the time, unless tour guides get lucky like I did that night, we don't get pictures. Things just happen, and by the time we get to our phones or whatever, we're like, did that crap really just happen? Most of the pictures we get on the tours come from folks just like you. People take the pictures, people send them back to us. I'm going to show you a few of those. I like doing it with the last tour of the night, so it's kind of a bonus for you guys hanging around late with me. Now, these are from our guests. So, you saw Bridget. Now, one of the things that a lot of people do when we do the tour, as soon as the room clears out, like if we all come out of this room, guests have a habit of doing this. They walk out of the room is empty, and they will snap a picture. And they keep doing that all throughout the tour. That's where people get some interesting things. Remember our first stop? One of our guests did that to that empty room.
No.
That's from one of our guests.
Oh, wow.
Remember the crane of pain, the thing hanging from the wall up there, the ceiling? That was one of our guest shots. Same thing, same way we just talked about doing it. Now, here's another room. Across from where we went up to the metal room, there's another section up on the 3rd floor. And it's lit up with red lights. Some guys use it, some guys don't. I'd rather go show you the metal walls instead of just an empty wall of brick that you've already seen anyway. So, person walks out the room is empty, reaches back, snaps a picture of the empty room.
Oh my God. No, not the one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, empty room.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new guy in tour in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Another one of those, snap back and take the picture. Empty room. That would be Lavinia's.
Wow.
I'm going to show it to you once, and then I'll bring it back around again. That would be Lavinia's. Now, remember what I said Lavinia looks like? Look in the middle.
Yeah, she's right there.
See the woman in the long white dress with the long dark hair? Yep, you caught her right off the bat. Good job. There's Lavinia standing in the middle.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got else here. All right, that pretty much, that type, but my favorite picture I'm going to show you. I love this picture. This was not a guest. This was somebody during the day. Out there in the broad daylight about 2 years ago. June. Walking through there, and they're taking pictures of the jail. In the broad daylight. He gets the picture. This is his picture. Back at the jail, the octagon. Nothing real bad about it. I'm going to show it to you twice. That's the octagon. That's his picture. Now, he looks at this picture and he discovers something in it. And then he finds out that we run the tour. He contacts us and he wants to ask us about the picture. Broad daylight in June. If you pull it up, you remember that door we came in at the top of the stairs? Look in it. There's a Confederate soldier standing there in uniform. Who the hell's going to wear a wool coat in June? So this is what our guest took at that door that we entered.
Yeah.
Confederate soldier. My favorite one out of the whole group. Now, just is what it is. So you guys got a little bonus here. That's what you catch. So if you took pictures or anything, or video or anything here, double check your pictures in your phone, because people catch all kinds of strange things in here all the time. So, with that said, sounds like the rain's died down, but instead of letting you guys out the back, I'm going to let you guys out the front because it's closer to the sidewalk and closer to where you guys are heading out to your vehicles. Now, before we go though, I've got a couple of business cards here. We're going to wrap up the tour. Hopefully you enjoyed the tour. Hopefully we entertained you but taught you a little history while we did so. If you did enjoy the tour and you get an opportunity, hit us up on TripAdvisor, Yelp, or Google, or our Facebook page and give us a decent plug. If you'd like your tour guide, my name is Bruce Orr. Can't remember it, it's on the card. That'll help you look up the book projects and anything else that I've done. Also, on the back of this card, it gives you 20% off your next tour. So if you want to do a history tour, you want to do a food tour, or you want to do another ghost tour, let them know you got this card. It's our way of thanking you guys for coming out and spending a little time with us tonight. Okay. So I'm going to give you these cards out to you. Also in November, I think it was, November I started a new project. So if you're interested in like the way I do the tours and you like a little conflict and you like a little bit of crazier type of stuff, I have partnered with an individual, Andrea St. Amand, and we have on YouTube, we've created our own channel called History in the Shadows. So the interesting thing about Andrea, first of all, if you've ever seen the show True Terror with Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger hosted, she's one of the experts on there. So she is a former attorney. Now, there's two things that I really have a problem getting along with. I hope there's no attorneys here, but cops and attorneys didn't get along real well. And then I've worked with a lot of different people, but I've always had an issue with psychics and mediums. I don't know why. It's not that I don't believe in them, but we just had conflicts. Andrea is both. So it gets a little interesting in there, and the topics that we cover are pretty unique. We talk a lot about ghosts and all that, but to give you an idea of what type it is, type of episodes we do. For Christmas, we did a special one. I don't know if you know it or not, but St. Nick, Santa Claus, St. Nick is the patron saint of prostitutes. So we put the hose back in Christmas, and we talked about three madams here in Charleston that ran Charleston. They actually ran the politics here in Charleston because it became so powerful. So we talked about whores for Christmas. So if you guys want to check into anything like that, look up History in the Shadows. But anyway, with that said, anybody interested in a card, grab one, and then we'll get you guys out the front here. Maybe you might have one or two in there. Just check them because
I have a quick question.
they got what? Sure.
I saw on the advertisement for that where there were people that were inside a cell. Are we able to get pictures inside of one of the cells?
Which, yep, if you want to get a picture of in the cell, we'll get you in the cell.
Okay.
In fact, we'll get you in one of the worst cells right here, right next to us. It's isolation. That's where they put them, and I'll tell you about it as we do so. Sure. Let's walk around here. They want to get a picture in the cell. If y'all want to, feel free to do it out now. Now,
This is the one time you can go to isolation and not have it go on your record.
let me tell you about this one. This is what I refer to as solitary, not so solitary, solitary confinement. See, we did it a little bit nastier here in Charleston.
Hold on, where's Flo?
I'm right here.
Oh, you're that one person tonight.
I'm right here.
All right.
Okay.
Now, the way they did it, we had a unique way of doing it. So the floors usually tell a story.
Okay.
So solitary, not so solitary, solitary confinement, we would have cast iron coffins here. So you'd be upright in a coffin with a little slit here. They throw in the food, everything would go downhill. If you take a dump, it's going down with your food. You can't bend down. So everywhere you see a mark here would be a coffin, here would be a coffin, he would be in a coffin, and we'd all be standing here. Now, remember what I said at the beginning? This was a marsh. So it would flood. Look at the average water level here. So, you know how a body would displace water inside a coffin? So if it's here, it's up to here while you're in the coffin. And you're waiting for it to get up to here. They said that the people that were often held here in isolation, once they got out, they'd ask for a blanket, they'd go upstairs, and they'd hang themselves so it'd never end up in the boxes in here. So this is probably the worst cell to be in. So if you want a picture, feel free to take one.
Okay.
We'll let you get out. If anybody else wants to do it too, we can turn the light on or off or however you want to do it. The light might give you a better